Hey there, Debbie.
I'm here.
I don't see you again.
What part of Canada are you from?
Oh, you did already? Okay, what I was gonna say to welcome back to part two. When you're tracing your bunny on, try not to push too hard on your lines because when you're doing some lighter colors, sometimes it's harder to cover those with the lighter colors like yellow and stuff. You'll still see that dark pencil line underneath. So with this, really, you don't have to outline the flowers or anything. You just have to outline the bunny, and then we can place the flowers where we want. So we're going to put the ribbon in there, and his top of his head, and his ears, and then you can this ribbon and is kind of hiding some of the hat. So if you just kind of make a little bit of a hat and put the rim in there, you can kind of guess where it's going to be. And then you can fill in the lines very easy. So you want to do the bottom of the hat and definitely his face. And again, you don't have to worry too much about little hairs and stuff like that are hanging under his hat. You can just put them in yourself. So we'll just put a little placement in where his eyes and his cheeks are. We're going to base coat this with white again too, so you're going to cover some of this. Oops, my bunny fell. And tape your guy really good. Okay, so let's see how that goes. So his arms and the top of the basket. You're gonna have some ribbon there, so you're gonna not see all the basket there. So just give you some placement here where his feet are gonna go. And you don't have to worry about too much about the eggs, because if you did the larger one, you're gonna have to pencil that in a little bit. So you can just take a quick peek to see if you missed anything before you take them off.
I may have made mine too dark.
And plus my carbon paper is a little bit old now too, which is good because then it doesn't come out so dark.
Hmm.
So I keep them and I use them again and again and again and again until I can't see anything from them. Alrighty. Alright, so I went and got a new plate because we're going to put more colors and you might have, took over your plate with practicing and doing your background. So we're going to start with our white and camel, or just a white for now, but we can put the camel on there too to get it ready. The camel is a little bit darker than the honeycomb, but both are nice. Like I said, if you want to make it a little bit deeper, you could always add just a very titch of burnt umber. I couldn't find these two soft colors in the multi-surface. I had to pick them up in the regular acrylic.
We found the camel in the multi-surface, but not the honeycomb or honey. Yeah, honeycomb.
I can hardly hear you.
Oh, we found the camel in the multi-surface, but we couldn't find the honeycomb in the multi.
Yeah, I think one of them is only in the regular acrylic.
Same thing with the sap green. I couldn't find that in the multi.
Yeah, they do have it.
No, we looked all.
Thicket'll work too. And just and if you ever want to make it a little bit darker, just touch just a small amount of the burnt umber or maybe a tiny little bit of black, and that'll deepen it a bit too. Okay, So what I want you to do now is, because of the green and the teal in the background, it's not going to make our white really pop and the colors really pop really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to base coat a little bit of it. But when you get close to the lines, try to be a little bit more see-through so you can kind of see where your lines are.
What size brush are you using?
Right now it's a 12. Okay, so I'm just kind of like filling in the spots. And I'm not really doing a good job because, like I said, I want to kind of see where my lines are underneath. If you don't see them again, if you don't see them after, then you can always put your bunny back on and retrace your stencil and to put your details in. But just try to just stay really soft over the lines so you can kind of see them, because you're going to go over them again with the outlining when we start adding some caramel or... So just very, very lightly for now. Just enough to start a base coat so that it doesn't look so teal and white. Is going to cover a little nicer when we do the we add the caramel. Okay, so you're going to go right over the face. And just like I said, very lightly, because you don't want to lose your lines. You don't have to worry too much over the cheeks. That's going to be a good strong color. And kind of making little circles there just so that I can kind of see where they're going to be. His feet. And if it gets a little dry, just add a tiny little bit of floating medium. And that'll give you a little bit lighter color. Oh, and don't forget his other ear. And just add to it a little bit of a point if you did the bigger one. Okay. How you guys doing? All base coated? You could use a 16 if you wanted to too for this outlining part. A bigger brush will make it go a little quicker, but you don't want to use a 3/4 because when you get into the smaller corners here, it's going to be a little trickier for you to spin your brush around. So I wouldn't go any bigger than a 16. So we've already got the white already loaded into our brush, so we could add a little bit more. And you're just going to side swipe into your camel or your honeycomb, whatever it is. Because you really don't want a lot of camel. You want more white than you do. So once you go into your camel, you can back up a little bit so that really you're only getting a tiny bit of color on the edge of your brush. Can you see that? A little bit blurry. Right. So we can start highlighting all around the edge of our hat first. And you're just going to use the dark all the way around the outside, the top of the brim of the hat. Okay, so you can see you're getting much better coverage the second time when you go over it.
I haven't got my base coat done yet.
Oh, okay. I'll slow down a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah. How you doing, Kim?
Getting there. Not quite done yet.
Okay. You guys have the little round sponges?
Oh, I have those somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, they're pretty handy for the cheeks. Not the largest one, the second largest one. If you have it handy, or you can do it with the round brush, or the flat brush too.
Okay. Now I'm wanting to put a little bit of camel on the corner.
Yep, so you're loaded with white, and then you're just going to side stroke into your puddle so that you're just catching the edge of the white, so that you've got like more like 75% white and maybe 25% of the dark of the camel.
And I'm just going to go across the top of the hat.
Yep, and then you're going to go down. Once you go across, then you're going to continue down into the top of his, inside of his ears there. So you're just going to make a little line all the way across the top and then follow it down into his head. And to give yourself better coverage, what I do now, right, if you guys want to take a look for a second, you're still got your brush double loaded, but what I do is I tip my brush sideways so then only the white is hitting. I can kind of sneak in a little bit more coverage there just using the side of my brush. Did you see how I filled that in?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just holding the brush on the side and filling the rest in like that after I did my outlining. So it just gives you a little bit more coverage. Then we're going to do the bottom of the top of the hat. You're just going to go around like this. And you're not even going to actually see this because it's going to get covered with flowers. But just to get it in there so you know, and if there is little peaks of part of the hat that is showing through, then you're, at least you know you're covered. So if you're not getting a good coverage and it's not sliding to give you, go right down to your point, you don't have enough floating medium in there. So you just have to add a little bit more floating medium to your brush. Okay. Then we're going to go underneath the brim of the hat. You can give it a little bit of a bend, try to see your line underneath hopefully. And then we're going to go around our ears, basically all around the outside of the body. Okay, so right here I did a little brush stroke that I wasn't happy with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wet brush, clean wet brush, and I can just wipe it off. Because I went on the wrong side of his ear. Okay, and then you could take a, once you dampen it, you can always grab a little bit of a old rag and wipe that off, you see? And my base coat didn't come off. So that's the nice thing about using the multi-surface. So I'm doing the highlight.
It's a little blurry for me.
My camera,
Yeah,
it was clearer earlier, wasn't it?
yeah. And then all of a sudden it was like shaking. I didn't
Oh,
see what you were doing.
could be my camera. Is that better? It's not
Yeah, that's
moving.
better.
Yeah, it's probably just because it's moving. My tripod is not very stable.
Oh,
Okay, so just to remind you about the ear part, we're going to do the outside pink. Okay, so we want to keep it lighter on the top of the rim of his ear. So you're only going to shade the top part, and then you're going to leave this part white. Can you see the bottom part is white? So you can turn your brush around and just try to use the outside of your color. Okay, so you can see that I kind of faded it. So you want to bring the shading a little bit further down for the top of the ear. Okay, and we're going to keep the underside not done yet, so we're going to put the pink in there. Okay, so now we're going to do the other side of the ear. And then to get this nice and white, you're just going to dip that one corner into the white and then follow that line all around where the pink goes. You see that? How I got the white a little brighter there? Because once you start mixing back and forth with your white and your camel, you start to lose your intensity of the white, which is okay for shading. But then you want just the rim of the top of his ear to be really white so that it stands out. Okay, so now we're going to go underneath the hat and around his face. And you can go right underneath his hat. So you're almost doing a double shade with very little bit of camel. Because there's always a shadow underneath the hat too, right? So you can just put a little tiny shadow underneath the hat. So your shadow is going in two directions. Okay, so once you run out of paint, then just go into the white and just fill in the rest of the hat. So it's okay if he's going to be like a little bit softer white in there, because we're going to put the wicker into him now too. Now this particular camel I bought was very thick. You can see how thick it is. Sometimes I'll pre-mix a little bit of floating medium in an area, because if it's too thick, it's not going to blend very well. So some of our paints get old. I'll put a little bit of floating medium and stir it in there and get a nice little pot here that's already nice and blended and a little smoother. So sometimes that happens too, especially when you're doing the bigger rolling leaves. So what I do is I just pre-mix a little bit of this thicker paint, because he's really thick. Can you see the blobs in there? He's really too thick. So if you find that, just work it in a little bit with some floating medium. Then when you grab your white and you side load into this new puddle now, you'll get a more workable paint. Can you see the difference?
Mhm.
So that's another little trick when you're struggling, when you're not getting a good flow, is because maybe your paint is too thick. And sometimes our white comes really thick. So if you're finding that it's hard to get it to run, just soften it a little bit before. Instead of adding your floating medium after and then working it in, you could also pre-soften your paint a little bit. That I had to learn on my own. That wasn't a Donna trick. Okay. So we'll finish off doing around the face. And then we're going to work our way around the arms. And I find if you want to do a little bit more dimension, you can always add like a little bit more burnt umber over this again, like in certain areas, if you wanted it to be a little darker in certain areas. Okay, so when you're doing around the little hands, you're just going to do it all the way around the bottom, then stop it at the bottom, reload your brush, and then start in the other direction and do your little C like that. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to do all the way around the outside first, all the way to the bottom, run out of paint, reload my brush, and then I'm going to start on the other side and work my way around here so we can hold on to the basket. Okay, so now I'm going to do his feet. Okay. So you see how I just fill in the middle there on the edge of my brush? Just keep following it around until you run out of paint. Then you go the other way because you still have a little bit of brush paint on the other side. And then you should be able to get all the way around his foot in one swoop. Alright. So we gotta go underneath his face a little bit too. So again, we're gonna do that reverse shading. So you did it this way around his cheek, but then you're gonna do another little shade underneath his cheek. And up underneath his nose area. And then again underneath his cheek and all the way underneath his face. Because again, we always have that shadow underneath our face, right? So you see how the benefits of having the shadow going on both sides of the line kind of gives it a nice soft look, eh? And then we're going to do the bottom of the basket. And then just above his feet is the top of the basket. And then just fill in with a bit of white to brighten up those areas. You can still see the green through. Like I said, if it's a little bit of dirty white, that's okay. I'm doing this crooked here. They're not exactly the same, then that's okay. Did I lose somebody?
Oh, I'm here.
No, I'm here.
Okay. I just heard a doorbell there. Okay. Alright, so again, fill in a little bit around the top of his face there. You don't have to worry too much where the cheeks are going to go. Just to give it a nice light color. Now that we can see where our lines are all shaded in. How we doing?
Okay.
Every time I do these, they're never exactly the same as the last one I do, I swear. But like you said, this ear here, I have it open. But this one's tucked behind the top of the hat. But this one here, if you notice over here, I don't even see the bottom of his ear anyways. So if you made your line all the way across like this, don't worry about it because we're going to put some other stuff on top of it anyways. And we're going to do the wicker. And you can see how little is actually here. But we're going to fill out the whole thing just to give you practice, make sure that you're comfortable with the technique. And then, if, like I said, you don't know where little spots are going to show through. So as long as you get a little bit of highlight showing through here and there, it's going to give you the illusion of some wicker. And the same thing with the basket. So we're going to start at the top first. And then by the time you finish the top, you're going to be a pro. And then by the time we get down here, because you can see more of the basket here. And there's a couple different ways of doing this. I found the easiest way, as I'm going to show you, is just doing some stripe across sideways, and then we're going to do our stripes after in a brick pattern down. Okay, so whenever you guys are finished all your outlining of your body, I will start with the brick layering of the wicker. And we can also, actually, what I'm looking at now is you can also paint in the handle of the basket. Okay, so it's going, you want to have a little bit of a highlight there. So you want, whenever you're doing highlights, you should always have the light on the top and the darker color on the bottom. So basically you're almost going to do like the ribbon. So you can just start off very lightly and then go up around a little fatter and then down a little bit. Mine's a little squarish looking there. Okay. Then I'm going to flip my brush around and I'm going to go over it again so that we get a little bit of texture going on there. A little too much floating medium on there, so just dab it off if you have a little mistake there, if you don't like. So this is probably the easiest way to do it. So you're going in both directions, right? So you're going on the outside of the line, and then you're going on the inside to give it a little bit of a basket there. Okay, and then again, we're going to put some grass and more little tiny ribbons around there. That's probably like an easy way to do it. I did get a little fancier with my top there. I tried to get like a double line going on there. It's whatever you feel like you can do, right? And how I did that is just going through it again and just putting that little second line in there in between the two. So if you're having a hard time with the 12, move down to a 10. Then you might be able to get these smaller strokes in there a little better. Okay, so wherever you think you want your eggs, you can always kind of white them out now while you still have lots of white in your brush, just so they're a little brighter when you put the yellows and oranges on them. And one is going to lean into the basket a little bit. And then we got one laying a little towards them there. And this one's laying sideways. He's kind of behind the front guy. Okay, so just start some placement for your eggs. So you ready for the baskets?
What was that?
You ready for the basket?
I have one more egg to do here.
Okay. Well, that's what we're missing, the side of his body. I don't know if you got that. I forgot to throw in his hip. So I lost some of my line. There we go. So just throw that in there quickly there. Rick. So just go over it again. I'm going to move down to my number 10 for the basket, probably. So whatever size you're using, you can just move down one size. So your line that you started at the top, if it's not dark enough for you, you can go over that again. If you're happy with it, you can move down just one brush stroke thickness down. And you're going to do another stripe. Right? And then again another stripe. Now remember what your little blue ribbon is going to go in there too. So like I said, don't worry about it too much. You're basically just doing three stripes in there. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do little strokes down. So we want to have a little bit of this fade showing through each side stroke down that we do. So to get them evenly apart, it's sometimes easier if we put one in the middle, put one at the edge, like that, and then it kind of splits it in threes for you. Then you can put another one in the middle there, and another one in the middle there. Then when you move down to the second row, we're going to brick layer them a little bit. So don't worry about too much about what's not covered there. So we're going to put one in the middle there, one in the middle there, and one in the middle there, and one in the middle there. So it kind of brick layers them. And then your third row, you're going to do like the top row. Do one in the middle, one on the edge, and then one on each side to fill it in. And so it's just the illusion of bricks, of the wicker hat, right? Then we're going to do some more rows. We have our first row, first highlight already done. So we're just going to move down one brush thickness all the way around. And then I go from this side to this side, all the way to the point, to the corners. And you can move down a little bit. And I try to join my corners a little bit. So you're feathering off from the same point, and then you're just coming a little wider, and then you're feathering into your original point again. So there's going to be a lot of flowers on here, so you won't even see most of this. And then one more. You can kind of follow the little softness of the hat. And then again, we're going to do our sideways. And just space it out. And then try to go in between. The rim is going to be a little bigger on the last one. If you lose your little shadow underneath your hat, you can always just put that back in. Okay. So you want the light at the bottom and the shadow right at the base of the line there. And if it's not giving you enough definition, you can always highlight it a little bit more with some burnt auburn in there too. I have it on my palette, but I haven't used it yet. So again, if I just wanted to deepen that brown a little bit more because it's getting too wishy-washy, I'll add just that tiny little bit of spot of burnt auburn, blend it into my camel, and then it'll show up a little darker. So you just want it very subtle. You don't want it like dark brown. You just want to use the burnt auburn just a little titch to, if you're losing some of your dimension with your white and your camel. Okay, so when we do the basket, sometimes my brush gets so wonky and lost its dimension. I just clean my brush, start all over, get a nice white again, go back into the side load, and then it'll be a lot brighter for you again. Okay, so start off fresh again. Sometimes we have to do that if you're not really stable on going back and forth in the same spot, you'll end up with a little bit of a muddy mess. So it's really important to try to stay focused and stay on the same area all the time. So when we do the basket now, we're going to do like little happy faces. So that it gives it more of an illusion of a round basket. And it looks a little different than the hat. Okay, so we're just going to follow that shape of the top of the basket. Just down a little bit further. And keep going all the way down. As many stripes as you like. If you're using a 12, maybe you'll have one less stripe than I will. I'm using a 10. And then one more here at the bottom. Okay, so don't worry too much where this egg is going to be. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing there. We're going to start in the middle, over to the side, and over to the side. And try to do like a little bit of a C, like not too straight up and down. Try to make them a little bit more of a soft C. And then the two in the middle. And then over here. And just keep going down with your bricks. Lost some of my weight there. Do this part here, but then you can just go over it again. If you got some brown onto your egg, just pick up a little bit more white and clean that up a little bit. Are we done with the white and camel? Want some nice colors now?
Just about done.
I'm sick of the camel. I need some color.
Yeah, color will be good.
Yeah. So that's all the boring camel color. You could make your ribbon and your little, you know, whatever color you like, but what I do like is how the dark blue kind of pops with the teal, and there's so much pink in the ears and his toes that I felt like I didn't want to use pink in the ribbon, you know? So I do like her idea with the blue, but you could make that purple if you wanted to. That might stand out nice. Alright, so I'm going to start loading up some of my colors. We need the cobalt blue now. We need more fresh white, which... Oops, sorry about that, make you guys dizzy. Here we go. We can start putting our dark green and light green out. And try to spread them out, you know, around your palette so you have enough room to blend in between. And I wouldn't worry about the yellow and the orange until the end, and then you can pop a little bit of that in there. Just get the leaf colors out, and some white, and blue, and pink. We'll do his ears, and the ribbon of his hat. I wish I could see your paintings while you were working so I can see how you're doing. And flip your table around.
Here's mine.
Oh, gonna make you bigger. There you go. Okay, show me again. You gotta talk when you show me.
Oh, can you see it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's getting there. Sorry, trying to get this to stop wobbling.
What are we using? Are we using the pink melon or the magenta or either?
We will be using both,
Okay.
but in the ears and his cheeks is the pink melon, and then we use the magenta for his nose,
Oh, okay.
and then you can make one of the eggs magenta, or two eggs. Yeah, the one in the basket and the one at the bottom is magenta,
Okay.
and then his nose is a little brighter.
So you wanted cobalt, white, magenta, and pink melon.
Yeah. And I find just putting a little bit of each color is all you need for now, because you don't really need a lot of each color. And then, because you don't want to waste your paint, because I'm so cheap, I end up scraping it out and trying to put it back in my bottle. So definitely, what I had to learn through time was just put a little of each, because if you put too much, it's too hard to blend, and then you run out of spots on your palette to
Okay.
work, right?
What color green are you using?
I have the lime green and the sap green or a thicket. Okay, so I try to put those two together, so then that way when I'm blending my two greens together, and then I try to keep an area so I can blend my blue and white together, and then I try to keep another little area that I can side load into my pink and pink melon, or my magenta. Okay, so first we're going to do his ears. So again, you can stick with your 12 or your 10, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, so again, I'm about half and half. Okay, you can put this one. There's two ways of doing it. You can do it like this, or sometimes Donna will put all white, and depending on how dark you want the color. If you want the colors to be really rich and separated, then you can always put them aside, or you can pick up your white just on the side of your puddle, and then go over to your pink and side load into your puddle that way. So it's whatever you feel comfortable. Sometimes it gets too messy, so I like to have a little area to the side to blend. Right, so then that way you're not picking up too thick, because you want to start in your puddle and then you back up a little bit. So then that way you're not picking up too much paint. So it depends on how you feel about that one.
And what color was it again? We were using white and
Pink melon and white.
oh, the pink melon. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if you notice on the original, it's actually darker underneath the rim of his ear and then lighter more on the outside. Okay, so it looks a little darker in there, so it looks like a little hollow in there. So the first thing I do is start lining the edge of his ear. Okay, and then you can tilt your brush up the other way at the top of the corner, and you can go it out a little bit down here and down here. But mostly you just want it to be a lighter pink on the outside. Something like that. Okay, and then this one I made a little bit more of a fancy flop on his ears, so there's a little bit more hanging over. Try to make them a little different, right? And then while we have our brush loaded with this pink, we're going to do his toes. And really all they are is like little teardrops, and they're not even closed really at the bottom. Like you see a little bit of an opening on the bottom, and then the bottom one is a full circle. So what you're going to start with is your bigger one on the middle, and then you'll do two smaller ones on each side. Okay, so it's just like a teardrop. You're just going to push up and then pull back down. Okay, so now this one's a little smaller, so you're just going to push up and pull back down. Is everybody okay with that? You can practice on some paper if you like first. And then this tiny little toe here. Okay, so we'll do these parts first. Okay, just so make sure that you're comfortable with that. because then the bottom part of the toe is going to be a full circle. Okay, so you definitely want a 10 or something smaller if you're afraid that it's going to go too big. Practice on a paper if you like, just to make sure that you're comfortable with doing your circle. Okay, so basically you're going to start standing right up and down, and you're just going to put a little side pressure on there, and you're just going to spin around in a circle. Okay, if you don't get it all finished, that's okay, because you can start at the top and spin around the other way. You see that?
Okay.
Do you want me to do it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're double loaded our brush. Okay, start up, standing straight up and down. Just a very slight pressure sideways and turning it around into the circle as far as you can. Right? Until your body just won't let you do it anymore. Then you just start at the top again and work your way the other way. Okay, and that's how you get your little circles.
Okay.
And basically you can do the cheek the same way as well if you don't have, or if you don't want to use this. But it does make it quite fun and easy to do with this too. But with the cheek you'll use a bigger brush so that you can get it to spin around the size you want. Okay? Alright, so we're going to do the bottom one now. And just try to stay tight to that circle. Start in the middle, work your way around the other way. Okay, so like I said, you could do your cheeks this way too, you know, and have your cheeks done with a brush. I'm just going to spread out a little bit further. It's the same brush I'm using. You know, you could do it that way. I find this does take a lot more paint because you have to really load it well. So I'm cheap, and if I can do it, you know, another way, I will. But if you like to learn how to do these, and just sometimes it's good just to moisten them just a tiny little bit so then it doesn't suck up too much thick paint. Again, very, very little, so you can barely feel the dampness on there. It's not dripping, and it's just a little bit moist. So we load up our brush, our sponge, really good with the white. You see that? Then when we go into our pink, we're just going to slide a tiny little bit on the edge. You see that? So we're going to work that in all the way around and just spin her around on your plate. Okay, you see how that works?
Okay.
So when you feel like you got enough paint in there, and you just do a little bit of a pressure and a tiny little bit of a spin, and voila! It's a tiny bit bigger, so you can do both the same. So I can go right over this guy. And there you go. Okay, so if you don't want so much, my other little cheeks were actually more, less white in the middle, so you can work it in a little bit more. Alright, so maybe I just didn't work it in a little bit more. Spin it around a little bit more. And then you can go over it again if you want. Just spinning it a little bit. You can see now they're a little bit more pinker. I keep looking at my original, trying to make them the same. Okay. So you can play with them until you get happy with that soft little cheek mark. And remember to put your sponges in the water right away so that they don't dry out on you. Okay, so I'm just wiping off the excess paint, picking up some fresh white, and then I'm going to go right into the magenta now. And it's just like a little half circle from the cheek to cheek. Okay, so you can color that in a little bit more. Right, give him a little nose. And then you can go a little bit around the inside of his cheeks with your magenta that you have on your brush already. Just follow that highlight, so you're just deepening the cheeks up a tiny little bit underneath his nose. You see how that's making it a little bit darker now with the magenta? While you have that in there, after you do your nose, just kind of go over your pink melon just in the center there.
What is that?
And that'll give him a little bit more shading. So before we do his eyes, we're going to get the white and the camel back out again. So because we're just going to add some hair now underneath his hat. And you can do that with your script liner. Just water down your paint a little bit so it's a little bit more wispier, especially my thick camel I have here. And then once I have the camel loaded up in there, then I'm just going to go and just do a little quick swipe to pick up a little tiny bit of white on my edge of my brush there. And just give him some wispy hairs. Some are a little thinner, some are a little bit thicker. And then around his face can go a little bit longer. Okay, when you start running out of white, you can just go and pick up just a tiny bit more white. And then if it's too white, then you might need a little bit more of the just little wispies this way and that way. And try not to go too low because we still got to get his eyebrows in there. So I do them after the eyes. So if you want to add just the tiniest little bit of black, I don't need lots at all, because that's the only place we're going to put black is for his eyes. So just the tiniest little pea is more than enough.
On the script liner?
Yeah. So again, if your black is thick, you might want to add a little bit of water. Just enough. You don't want to add the water to the whole black puddle, just a little bit to the side. Just make a tiny little bit to the side. just to make it a little bit more runny, so then that way you're getting a little bit more looser stroke. Not too runny, not too thick. And just so you can, you can make little strokes. And with the eyes, it's actually just kind of dabbing. It's not even really making a perfect triangle, and it's not really a triangle. It's more like a gumdrop. It's a little bit softer round around the top, and then you're just going to dab in the sides. And we're going to put in a tiny little bit of white to give him some highlight after. Okay, so he's got some hair in his eyes a little bit. That's okay. And just like a soft little gumdrop, and you just kind of tap, 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 tap it in. If you see a little bit of space in between, that's okay. Alright, so you're just going to fill that in to the top of his cheek. And trying to get them, similar size. Okay, so we really need this kind of like inky so that we can make his little eyelashes. So definitely make sure you practice on your plate a little bit and try to make little thin lines. And if it's not doing this for you, it's too thick. Okay, because you really just want to use the very tip of your brush. And you see how long this is lasting me? I can do all of his eyelashes with what's on my brush right now. Okay, so if you make it inky enough, you'll be able to do it. Okay. So sometimes it's hard to get one side of his eyelashes done this way, and then you gotta flip your hand the other way. So I have a hard time getting both eyes exactly the same too. But if you flip your canvas around this way, sideways, or on an angle a little bit, you'll be able to get them. I'm trying to see if you can see me here. So I always start in the middle of the lash and then work my way down a little bit, and then you want some long, some short, some long, and then as I finish the bottom, then I go and I finish the top. I always get a little better shape if I start in the middle of the lash. Okay, can you see? So just starting in the middle, and then if you feel like you need a little bit more flare, you can always add a few more. Okay, so again, it's easier to pull towards you than try to pull your brush away from you. So I'll always turn your canvas so that you're pulling towards you, and you'll get a much softer wisp as opposed to trying to flick it the other way. Does that make sense? And then just fill in some short ones and some long ones. Take a look at both of them. If you feel like you need a little bit more length, then you can always make a few longer. Work in your eyes a little bit. So we're going to do the eyebrows in the burnt auburn. And if your hair is hanging down a little low like mine is, you really want to make these very translucent, just like the black. Really water this brown down. And test on your paper or on your plate to see how your stroke is looking. Because you really just only need a very light one. You don't even need it like really dark brown. You just need a little bit translucent. Okay, practice both eyebrows. Practice this direction and this one. Okay, and you don't really want to make them too dark. You just want to make them a little bit softer. Really like a watery down brown. Oops. There's a little mess there. So again, you just take a clean brush, wipe off your little oops, dry it off. No harm done. And then a little bit of pressure in the beginning of the eyebrow, and then a little bit of a point at the end. Okay, and it might be a little easier if you turn your easel a little bit, or your painting a little bit, and then do it the other way. Okay. So at this point, if you feel like you want a few darker pieces in your hair, you can always add, because you've got the brown in there now, you can always add a little bit more darker hairs on top of your eyebrow that you just did. When you put the highlights into your eyes, what I like to do is try to copy whatever I'm doing on this side, I'm doing on this side. So it's not opposites, it's on the same side, because the light that comes in, that bops off of your eye, will look the same on both eyes. Depending if the light is coming in this way, is the light coming in this way, you know, so the sun will throw different shadows and highlights. So what I usually do here is just like maybe a little bit of a half or a third of a circle, and just in little dots. And then I do the exact same thing over here. And then on the top of the eye, I only put like 2 tiny little dots. So you want the highlights on the top of the eye smaller than you do on the bottom of the eye. Okay, and it's just little dabs. It's nothing really too precise. So I'm just grabbing a tiny little bit of paint on the end of my brush. 1, 2, 3. Oh, not strong enough. And then do the exact same. And then on the top, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So what do you think of that face so far? Pretty cute, no?
Very cute.
You guys okay? You need a little 5-minute break to go to the bathroom or anything?
I need a little break. I haven't got my eyes done yet.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I just was wondering how you're feeling. Maybe we can slow down a little bit there, let you catch up.
I'm going to have to go shortly. I have to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning, so
Oh no.
yeah, I start work at 3.
Oh, that's a very early morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the great thing is that you're able to have the recording after, and you'll be able to finish with the recording.
Okay, so how do I get the recording?
I'll email it to you. There'll be 2 links, and
Okay.
there'll be 2 separate links, one for part 1, one for part 2, and then you click on one at a time. You click on the first one, it'll take you to a page, and you'll see download.
Okay, and then I'll
You
download.
click on download, then you go back to the email, go to the second part, and then do the same. You have to do them separately.
Okay.
And then just remember where you put them in your computer. Because they will only be on my Zoom for a couple days, and then I'll delete them.
Oh,
But
okay.
what I'm also doing is I'm backing them up on YouTube.
Okay.
So for any reason that your computer crashes, you lose them, then I could always give you a link to YouTube, and you can access them there. Those videos on YouTube will be private. I will only give the people that were in that class that link,
Oh,
unless
okay.
I sell the recording like Donna does. You know, then they'll have access to it if they want to buy the recording after. But other than that, it'll be just the people that are in the class that will have it as a backup.
Great.
Okay.
So if you ever have any problem with your computer file, because once we delete them off Zoom, they're gone. And like
Right.
Donna will tell you that if you lose them, they're gone.
Yeah.
So I have learned that YouTube is a great resource for backup.
Okay.
So I'm able to also back them up on YouTube, and then you can look at them there too.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely leave them on the Zoom for a few days. You know, make sure that you guys have them downloaded,
Okay.
and then
All
I'll
right.
delete them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to get to bed.
Yeah, you're getting tired, eh? It's about 8:30, so we would only be going on for maybe another half hour.
Yeah. I'm
But if
usually in
you're
bed.
tired, then feel free. Yeah, like I said, I feel good that at least you're gonna get the recording, and I hope that I'm gonna send you an invite as well to my group. And if you want to post pictures on my group of how your work turned out, that would be wonderful. If you want to throw a little review on my page of how you felt about my class, that would be wonderful too. I'm got to get these girls excited and hopefully trying to get on with me. But if Kim, you're still up to keep going, I will continue and finish this project so then that way you guys have the full video.
Sure.
Okay.
I
Like
Okay,
I
so,
said, if I didn't have to get up early, I'd still be on. But,
well, both of you have been so wonderful to be my first of all my Zoom classes that I want to offer you to both to come and join me on my next program, the Mason Jars,
Okay.
and
oh,
free. You can come for free. Okay?
oh,
Cool.
So just use that same code again, and just to remind me that you're going to come. And you can definitely do another class for me, just because I know you guys have been so patient with me trying to figure things out and trying to test all these the newsletters out. Like I've never sent newsletters out before. So so definitely appreciate all your help with your input on that.
When are you having that class?
I'm going to do one a month from now, so that'll be April 8th.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I have the Blue Moon one scheduled for May.
Oh, for May.
So every month, and then as I get more interest, then what I'm going to start doing is doing one easy project and one hard project a month. So then that way, as you guys get better and better, you're going to want harder projects. And then the people that are just beginning, they're still going to want the easy ones. So I'm going to try and have one of each available every month. And then that way you guys can take whatever ones you like.
Nice.
great.
So yeah, it's coming. It's getting there. Yeah. Okay, so how you doing, Kim? Are you still doing okay?
Yeah, I'm working on the eyes. Could you give me a close-up of the eyes and the eyebrows again?
Sure. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
Okay, you all have a good night.
Okay, it was so nice meeting you, Debbie. We'll talk to you soon.
See you,
All right,
Debbie.
thank you so much.
No
Bye.
problem. Bye-bye.
Bye, Kim. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so you can see that it's still a little bit light under here. So if you want to add some little shadows underneath his cheeks a little bit more to define under here with the camel, you can always add a little bit more under there too.
Oh,
Because I made my cheeks a little bit bigger, so it kind of hid all the shadow that I put under there. So you can just pop that shadow back in a little bit. Just follow the line with the camel if you want to. You can play and add little more dimensions as much as you want. If you want to make the little rim of his hat a little darker, you can always take the liner with the burnt umber and just try to put like a tiny little, shadow line in there. Or you can actually double load your brush and just kind of go along it very softly just to give it a soft, deeper shadow. It looks nice with all the bright colors anyways. Just giving you some ideas that if you wanted to play and try to get more dimension.
yeah. A lot of times, like when I've watched Donna before, she goes really fast, and
Uh-huh.
I have to just try to do it later with a recording or
Yeah,
do my
she
little.
loses me too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoy it, but it gets to a point sometimes where I just sit back and watch.
Yeah.
I think I learned more watching, and then we'll do it afterwards, not feeling
Yeah,
pressured.
that's right. Yeah, that's what I don't mind to have a little longer class, but then I also want you guys to feel like it's not too long,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
sometimes
Because
it
you
can
do
be,
get
okay, I'm
tired.
tired now. I don't want to do this anymore. So, yeah, I'm trying to find a happy balance. I know she just keeps going and going and going,
Yeah.
but depending on who's in my class, I'm trying to get a feel of your comfort level too. So I don't mind doing a little longer class to make sure that you're comfortable. Okay, so we've done the eyes and the face. Now we're going to put the blue into the hat for his ribbon. Okay, so again, I'm going to pick up mostly all blue and just a little bit of white just to give it a little bit of dimension there. Okay, mostly blue, and then I picked up the white and I brought it back over to the area where I was. Okay, so sometimes we side load into the puddle. Okay, so I'm going to put my highlight on the top of the hat rim, and this is a 12, so you can use a 10 if you want a smaller rim.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're just going to put a tiny little ribbon at the top of his hat. Okay. A little bit of an angle. I'm going to go over that again and just put a little bit more of an angle in there. Okay. And then we're going to do our ribbon on the side of his one ear. So you want to make sure you add a little bit more floating medium into this. So then that way it can go all the way around your ribbon. So some of our ribbon is going to sit over our bow. That's okay. And so just about, halfway through his ear, I'm going to start my ribbon and pull up and then under. And if I didn't get enough coverage or my white isn't intense enough, then I'll go over and I'll pick up just a little bit more white, blend it in, and then just before you're ready to paint, I'll go and pick up just a tiny little bit more white again, and I don't blend it this time. So then that way you'll get a little bit more stronger white line, because once you go back and forth you lose the intensity of your white. So just before you make the stroke, I just go pick up just a tiny bit of white. My white is starting to get a little bit thick, so we can go right over that again. If we're not happy with it, just follow your original line and then back in. Okay, so like I said, when your white starts to get too thick, it makes it a little bit hard. So either you have to put a little bit more fresh white on or mix some floating medium into it, and then that'll soften it again. Okay, so it'll blend a lot better if you have some fresh white. Around and under and towards the center. Then I'm going to do the other side. And you can go a little higher if you want. And then inside. Sometimes I feel like it's just the bottom that didn't get good coverage. So you could always just slide right in there, put your pressure in, and then lift up. And I just fixed the bottom part. Okay, it's almost like a rose there I made. Okay, so you can just make that a little bit more even. then we're going to do our little knot in the middle. And from here, we're going to do our ribbon that just lays on top of the rim of the hat. So I just kind of made it a little bit of a soft, you know, little wiggle. Then the other one on the other side, it kind of flows away. It's a little longer ribbon. Okay, so you can make that a little bit hanging off his hat a little bit. If you don't get enough coverage, just go over it again. Add more paint on your brush, and then try to follow your original. Okay, so you can go flow right off his hat. Sometimes you end up wrecking your little bow in the knot in the middle. If you go into it, it doesn't look good, just go over it again. So then that way your knot is actually sitting on top of your ribbons. So they're tucked under again.
Okay.
Okay. Alright, and while we have some blue on our brush, we can always paint a couple eggs blue. So I just mixed the white in there because I want a good solid blue. So I don't even bother cleaning my brush, I just pick up a bunch of blue. So one of our eggs is going to be blue in the background here, so we can kind of just put in almost like a half egg there. And just try to make them tucked inside the basket a bit. And then we can make the one by his foot here. Alrighty. Oops. Alrighty. So we can go and clean our brush a little bit and paint the rest of our eggs, especially the ones in the basket, because we want to add some decorations to them later, so we want to make sure they're good and dry before we add the little white details on there.
Okay.
So you can go and add some orange and yellow to your palette if you want to, a little bit. Whatever colors you like in your basket. They don't have to be the exact as mine. And I can even put my magenta one over here for a change. Just want them to try to stay in the basket. Make it a little bigger. And then I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I put the another color on top. And we'll stick the other magenta one over here. So again, like I said, you only need a very little bit of orange and yellow. I tucked a little bit of yellow in the background of one of my corners here just to make it look like there was a little presence of another egg in there. And when I do the yellow one, I get the yellow in there, and then what I did was I just picked up just a tiny little bit of orange on the corner, just to kind of highlight the yellow a little bit. Just so that it's a little bit more depth to it. It's a little bit too much orange, but you just go over it again with your yellow. So it just kind of makes it a little bit more dimension there. And then I made the other one a lot stronger orange. And then you could even add a little magenta in there too if you wanted to shadow around the orange egg. And the big guys in the front, they don't have to be decorated. You just leave them plain because he hasn't got to them yet. He only decorated the ones that are in the basket so far. Orange is hard to cover on top of blue, so if you just add a little tiny bit of white to your orange, then you might get a little better coverage. And then let that dry, and then you can always go over it again with your brighter orange once it's dry a little bit, just to kind of base coat a little bit. Alright, so I just base coated that mostly just to get rid of that blue there. Okay, and then while I'm doing the leaves, that's going to dry. How you doing on your eggs?
Okay.
Yeah, good.
I need another one done in the basket, I guess.
Okay, so when we're ready there, you can clean your brush, and then we're going to load the 2 greens, and we're going to add just a little bit of white in there to lighten up that green a bit more. Not too much, just a little bit. And then we can start placing some leaves here and there, and try to visualize, you know, you're going to leave spots where your flowers are going to be. So we have a couple sticking out behind the flowers, right? So this one here, I ended up hiding that whole leaf, but you know, that happens sometimes. So we're just going to try and place them in spots where we know we're going to have the tip of the leaf sticking out. So on the side of his ear, we can put a couple leaves sticking out that way. My paint's drying on me. And if you want a little brighter green, you can always add a little bit of yellow into that green as well. So we're going to put one straight out right underneath his ear. Then the second one is going to have a little bit more of a tip down. And then I tip my canvas over to the side so that way it's easy for me to put one down. So it's going to hang a little bit lower down over his hat or her hat. Okay, so that's some good placement there. Then I wanted one to kind of pop up, but I put it in this way, so what I should have done was put it towards his ear. So that way I can put the flower on top of it. So you learn as you go. Like every time you do it, you think, oh, didn't like this, I like that. You know, maybe next time there's plain shopping bags that you can buy. And if you wanted to make gifts for your kids, you can buy all the chocolates and put it in one of those little gift bags and paint your Easter bunny on the gift bag for them. And they would love that, you know, having something that, you know, aunt or mom or grandma or whatever made for them, that's hand painted and something they can keep. They can bring all their, you know, snacks to school or their books in it, or, you know, they're not necessarily shopping kids, but they still love bags to throw all their toys and carry them around. And, you know, when they're visiting family, they can pack their stuff in the bag, in their own little bag. So that's quite a cute little idea. So this one here above, on the other side of his ear, I'm going to put it up a little higher than my original. Again, because I learned the hard way by putting my daisies there. Some of them can be a little darker, some of them can be a little lighter, like some might be more yellow, some might be more whitish green. You know, it's okay to have, because some of the leaves are starting to die and some of the leaves are fresh. There's brand new little leaves, so they're going to be a little brighter with orange or yellow in them. Okay. So then we had a couple more leaves that we did underneath the ribbon. So We can put one right there. And then I put one going the other direction, hanging a little bit more over his eye. And then I put one more in front of his ear on an angle down. And then another one angling down. And again, you know, you can always put a few here and there, however you like. And that should be pretty good for now. You see the placements? And then while we have the green on our brush, we can put in a few grass strokes. Again, you want to make sure you have enough floating medium in there so that they really slip and slide, make them really thin and wispy. I like to start with the white side down so that when I flick up, my light is going to be the last to show. So you can start off along the side of his body a little bit and just do little flicks. And then wherever grass is going to pop out, right? And some down here at the bottom. I kind of get my placement going all in one direction first, then I'll flip my brush around to get a different color combination to add a few more. A few more up here. Is he's squishing the grass when he sits on it, right? So he has to kind of like bulge some outside of him. And some just tiny little flicks here and there. Maybe a little one here. You just fan them out. And then I'll go back in and I'll add some yellow into it now to make it a little bit different. And then I flip my brush around again, so now I'm starting to get a little darker with the lighter. Just keep going and picking up some fresh dark green and some floating medium. And some grasses are going in different directions. Some are a little fatter. You can press down a little stronger to get a little fatter one every once in a while. This is the fun part. Just have some, little wispies here and there. Pick up a little bit of white. And then add a couple light pieces here and there. Something like that. Have fun with it. I'm not even looking at the original. I'm just kind of having fun. Before we add the grass to the that's inside the basket, I suggest that we decorate the eggs first. So we'll have to come back and double load our grass a little bit later. So we'll just clean our brushes for now. And if you want to go over that orange that's in this basket, make that a little brighter, that would be a good time to kind of brighten that up. And then while we're doing our flowers, then that'll be dry. The coffee's going right through me. I have to take a little pit stop.
Okay. No
So
problem.
while you're catching up there,
Mhm.
I'm just going to take a little bio break.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
No problem.
Just going to mute. There, that feels better.
Good.
So how you doing? You caught up?
I think so. Maya, what do you have? Maya.
My
Maya.
daisies are going to have a tinge of green in them.
What was that?
I said my daisies are going to have a tinge of green in them.
Oh, well, that makes them realistic.
Yeah, that's okay. If you have a little bit of a dirty brush, that's okay. Try to just pick up as much fresh white as you can there to do your daisy.
So what size brush should I be using for the daisy?
Actually, I like to do a smaller one with the daisies. So if you've been using a 12, go down to a 10. If you've been using a 10, go down to an 8. I find the daisies are easier with a little smaller brush.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna try even an 8 here. Because I have a tendency of pushing too hard. So if I use a bigger brush, then they'll be too fat. So if I use a smaller brush and I push down a little too hard, then they're not so bad.
Okay.
Right? So with the daisies, I always think one size smaller.
All right.
And it depends. Sometimes you want your daisies to have little tiny... These ones I did make a little fat because I did make them with a bigger brush. But they'll all look good. Okay, so we figure out where we want to put our 2. Right, so right now the edge of this ribbon is not very nice, right? So I'm going to try and be strategic so I can cover that part of the ribbon that I don't like.
Okay. Let's see what
Okay,
we
so I'm going to figure out where I want my center. So just put a little dot there to keep you focused. Make sure your white's not too thick, not too runny. Again, you're going to measure your brush width. So it's there and there. So you want to start at that point right there, push down, and then pop up very quickly. You can go a little wider if you want, but not smaller. So you want at least two widths of your daisy, so that when you start at the top, you're pushing in the middle, and then you're picking up by the time you're at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. And then to keep you focused a little bit more, you can do the 12, 3, 6, and 9, and then fill in the middle if you like. Sometimes it's hard to do your daisy stroke, pushing from the bottom and flicking up. And if you do have a hard time, then I suggest just keep turning your canvas. So that way you're always pulling towards you. And you just keep spinning, spinning, spinning. And then you'll get the consistency there. Okay, and then I'm going to put another full one right at the bottom of my ribbon. So I'm going to do 3. Then I'm going to flip my canvas upside down to do the 6. Right in the middle of those 2 leaves. And then you can do little thinner ones too. Like I said, if you make them all the same, drop my canvas, ran out of room. It just makes them a little bit more interesting when your petals are all different. Okay. And then we're going to put a couple over here. So I always do the middle one first. Then I do each side and each side. And over here, you can even do another full one if you want. yeah, we did do a couple more. And then we can do another one over here by the ear, a half one. And then I stuck a little one over here on the edge. You only see a side profile. And another little one tucked under here. Or something like that. And for the centers, all I did was use the back of my brush with some nice clean bright yellow. I just did some simple ones because they're a little smaller, so you don't need to have a lot of detail. But I like making them a little bit more egg-shaped, like sideways eggs. Not a perfect circle, just a little bit of an angle sideways. And then depending on which way I want the illusion, you know, sometimes you can put that little bit of an angle on different directions. So you see that when it's up and down here, it makes it look like it's going that way. When you make your little centers oval, you see how it makes them look a little bit more unique when your centers are not all the same shape. Like they're all ovals, but they're in different directions. And then maybe just a little one showing there. And a tiny little spot might be showing here. And maybe a little tiny spot showing right here. But you see how the centers, when you make them a little bit different, that really adds to the play of it tipping this way or that way. So they don't all look like they're exactly the same. Okay, so while we're on the white, we can get our script liner out and add a little bit of water to our white. I keep grabbing my old script line. So we're going to decorate our eggs in the basket. And we don't have to go crazy with detail. Like, I probably did a little bit more than Donna. You know, I tried to make some straight lines, some squiggly lines, and then, you know, some little zigzags with some dots, and just a simple line with some more dots. So it's not really extravagant decorations, just all with white. It's just something simple. I'll show you Donna's original. Okay, so she even actually went even more subtle with the details on the eggs. So it's up to you what you like to do. That's her original. And when you make your line, you make it a little bit fatter on one side and a little bit more narrower on the other side with a little bit of an angle. It looks like it's actually on a round surface. And then the bottom of my egg, I'm going to make the stripe the other way, a little bit of on an angle. This one will get a little fancier and do zigzag. And then just some dots. That's simple. And we're also going to, while we have our strip liner, we can also make a really inky thicket or sap green, whatever you have. And we're going to add a few curly cues coming out of our flowers.
Oh no, really cues.
Yeah, you want to practice a few of those on paper first?
I probably should.
Yeah. The harder you try with curly cues, the worse they are. Really, I think that when I finally got my head around just trying to keep a looseness to my touch, because when I was trying too hard to make every little, then they were, you know, looking like I was trying too hard. You know, you're pushing too hard, and most of the time I didn't have enough water in my brush as well, so really, really inky. Donna recommends you go to your water basin 3 times. Add a little, mix it, add a little more water, mix it, and do it 3 times, and then you should have enough water to make it very inky. And what you do is just kind of rest your pinky on the page just very lightly, just so that you have some stability. Your brush is going to be directly up and down, so that when you're making your little squirrels, I'm trying to do it standing, like holding up my brush here, but hopefully you'll get an idea of making sure that you're down the brush too, because if you got too much play, you're gonna feel awkward. You're gonna really feel like you're going like this. So you come a little closer to your ferrule. That's what they call this little steel part here.
Okay.
Then you'll have a little bit more. You won't have to stretch your fingers out as far.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If you're a little bit closer, like as opposed to a lot of people think that they're okay like this, but then you gotta really tighten up your curling process. So I find when you're a little closer, then you have more room to hold on to your with your pinky. They call this like a fulcrum finger, so it kind of keeps you grounded.
Okay.
And then you can do a few circles, and then you can go the other way, and then out again. You know, some you can just do like little strokes like this, just to give it some little highlights. You know, so you can make them a little bit different. So you can see on top, I was using them where they were starting at the top and then going in. And then these little wispies are just, some of them I just made little squiggly. Some, you know, I just make them as easy as you can do without stressing yourself out. You know, if you feel like you can't get the loops going, then just try to make them little softer, little wispies.
Okay.
Here I kind of crossed over
There.
so that they crossed over each other a little bit.
Okay. What color are you using? Black or?
This sap green.
Oh, the sap green. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little softer, or the hunter green.
Okay.
And so just try to have fun with it. And try to go quick, you know, so that you're. And I like to do a couple sprigs, you know, so it looks like they're little sprigs of something else. And then I like doing this one where you kind of cross over. It looks really pretty when you kind of cross two over each other.
Oh, yeah. Blue. Okay. I'm afraid to even do one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can do one in a different direction. You know. Just try to have them joined into so they're not just floating in the air. So if you feel like you're a little disconnected, just kind of piece it in there.
I think I'm going to practice those a little bit more before I put them on my
Sure, yeah, definitely.
painting, because I'm afraid I'll mess everything up with it.
Yeah, if everything else is dry in the background, if you do one that you don't like I said, you can just take your brush really quickly and then wipe it out. Take a towel, dry the area, and there, it's gone.
Okay.
So try not to worry too much because nothing can't be fixed,
Okay.
right? So if as long as your background is dry when you do it, like maybe your centers of your yellow might be still wet or something, just be careful.
Okay.
But if everything is really dry when you do it, it'll be very easy to erase it.
Okay.
Just take another clean, wet one like I did, and just kind of rinse it off, and then dry it, and try again.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty, so once we get our little curlicues there, you can also add a little bit more of a blue ribbon on the side of our, and then again, you can practice that a little bit more too if you don't feel comfortable to put it on right away. So it's very much like our little curlicues, but we're just doing loops. You know, do about 4 or 5 of them, and then you're going to do a little trail hanging down.
Okay.
And so it's the very same thing as the green, but we're just going to use the cobalt blue instead.
All right.
Make sure it's nice and inky. Not dripping off your brush inky, but you know, test on your plate a little bit, see how it's working, and then that's what I usually do. I just test a little bit on my plate to see, oh, that's way too wet. I better put some more thick stuff in there. You know, so until you feel you got the consistency right.
Okay.
And then you're just doing little loops, join, stop. Another little loop, join, stop. Another little one there. You know, so they're just kind of little loops. And then you can make one big one there. And then, of course, they're going to knot there, and then they're going to trail down a little bit. Now, see that one little one? I felt like it was too heavy and too thick, and I didn't like the shape of it. So I'm just going to grab my clean brush right away, clean it. Sometimes you have to go and clean your brush and wipe a couple times. More clean water. Wipe, 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 wipe until you've got it all clean. So it was just that one that I didn't like. So now I can go back and try again. Okay. So don't be afraid to try, because you can always wipe it away.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to try and highlight a little bit. Too much. Just slightly under his cheeks because I lost his shading there. Just a little bit of something. And that also helps to clean up if you made a mess with your cheeks.
What are you shading with? What color?
The camel again.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was shading earlier and then I did his cheeks too big, so I kind of lost my shading underneath his chin. So I just popped a little bit more shading back underneath there so that
Oh, okay.
it stands out. His face stands out more than his body does, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Just a little bit. Just because when I made his cheeks, I went a little bit bigger. And all that shading I did underneath his chin earlier, I lost it right there.
Oh, okay.
So you can just pop it back in there a little bit.
Okay.
And then we can add a little bit more grass. And if you want to just use your liner, you can do that too. You know, to put those few little smaller wisps in for the grass.
Okay.
Again, like I said, with the liners, I always like to load my brush with a darker color. Then I'll swipe through with a lighter color, a green or yellow, just enough to get a lighter color on the tip a little bit.
All right.
And then you can go in and add a few pieces of grass hanging out of your basket. Just here and there. Some are going up, some are, you know, the little grass that you put in your basket there to make it look like. And you can put a few pieces of grass in with your ribbon just to kind of soften that a little bit. Just here and there. And I think she's pretty much done. Like I said, once it's dry, if you feel like you want to add a little bit more white highlights to fix his ears, like I went over my line a little bit. So wherever you don't like, you know, you can always go over it again with the camel and the white
Okay.
and just fix what you don't like.
Yeah, she's pretty cute.
Yeah, so see, I just want to clean this up a little bit more because I went a little excited there. So you just go over it again and just kind of blend her in a bit. Alright, that looks a little neater. Yeah, I don't know if you can see how I just made that line a little bit stronger because it was a little bit wishy-washy there.
Okay.
So I just went in there again with the white right on the edge, a little bit of camel, and make sure it was runny enough so that I get it and go slow, and then you can get a nice strong line there.
Okay.
So anything you don't like, you can always go over again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you have to sign it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. If you wanted to add a little bit more dimension to your background too, you could take a tiny little bit of your darker green and just floating medium. So you're just going to use green on one side, and I need to add a little more floating medium. I'm trying to find a clean spot on my plate. And you're just going to put mostly floating medium and just a little bit of green. Can you see how small amount of green I have there?
Okay.
And a little bit of floating medium, so it's really a little bit runny. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to float a little bit of background line right along my light green. And you can see that it's a little bit dry. Where am I? There you are.
Okay.
Okay, so that shows me that I don't have enough floating medium.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to just add a little bit more floating medium. A little bit more green. And when I go over it again, nice and slow, if it's wet enough, it'll look like a little bit more of a solid, clean line without seeing all the canvas little bumps in there. And then don't forget to go over to the side of your canvas too. And just kind of soften it out so it goes a little bit of a shading there. Donna didn't do this. I was just thinking I did this in another project there once. Cat hair. Go figure with my cat. So you see how that kind of makes it a little more of a horizon?
Right. Yeah.
You don't want it to be like a hard line, just a little bit of a shadowing there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do it just with the green and the floating medium, you're not changing the underground color.
Right.
You see that little trick with just floating medium in one color?
Yeah. That's a good one.
And then you can go over here and do the same on the other side. Just because I'm noticing my background wasn't as dark green as my other original was. So just a little trick to kind of add a little bit more of a horizon kind of line. And then you can always go back and forth, just adding a little bit of depth into it. Whatever's left in your brush. Just enough to, you know, kind of play with it. You see the little streaky marks I just added?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just add a little bit more movement into the grass in the background.
Okay.
So this one here I did a little bit too dark. This one here is actually I like better. Just a little softer. Okay, so if I would have seen that right away, I could have wiped it off when it was wet and started over. You might be able to water it down. Oh yeah, it's still wet enough. So I just watered my brush a little bit
Uh-huh.
and then I thinned it out. Making a mess. It's hard to hold your canvas and paint when you're holding it like this. But you wonder how Donna does it, eh? She paints upside down and backwards, that one.
I know. It must be because she has painted for so long.
She's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
30, 40 years, yeah. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cute compared. You know, you can do this 10 times and they're all going to look slightly different.
Oh, sure.
You know, and then like I said, the first time I did it, I'm like, oh, maybe I put that ribbon a little too low on his head. So the next time I did it, I tried to go a little higher.
Uh-huh.
So you learn as you go too.
Right.
'Cause the first time I was really copying Donna. So then I'm like, but I don't like that. So I want to change it a little bit. So you're allowed, right?
Sure, it's your make it
Yeah.
yours. Yeah.
So, like, you're gonna get a chance to paint this again, maybe another time on another canvas for somebody else, or maybe a T-shirt, or like I said, a gift bag. That's really makes really cute gifts around the holidays.
Or just do it when I've gotten better and see.
Yeah, when you're ready to give it away.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn every time you do it again and again. And then every project that we have too offers more, harder strokes and a little bit difficult, and then it also helps you to learn the ones that we did last time and just make them better. So that's my goal too, is that I'm going to have a variety of stuff so that you'll keep enhancing your technique.
Yeah. Good. It's so enjoyable. It's so much fun.
Mm,
It's
art
like,
therapy, some people call it.
oh, that's what I was just gonna say. It's like
Yeah,
a stress reliever.
yeah, I do too. I love it. I spent 30 years in the beauty industry listening to women scream at me, no, I don't like it, I don't want this. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Painting is just so much more enjoyable, and
Uh,
uh, you know, it's a lot
well,
more fun. I
I
love
worked
creating.
in healthcare and had patients complaining constantly, and they were sick. But I've retired, and now I'm just doing fun things for me.
That's right. Yeah, I'm practicing my retirement. That's what I call it. I'm still working 2 days a week at a salon just to get, some extra money and get out of the house once in a while, and until I can get this going. And then once I get busier with this, I'm ready to quit.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, yeah. So 2, 3 days enough for me now. And so yeah, I'll try and do my classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then some paint parties on the weekend would be nice, like
Yeah.
local.
Oh, yeah. That seems to be a very, very popular thing, the paint parties.
Yeah, but around here they're mostly the wine and sip ones at the bar.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to do the ones that are at home, and family and friends and
Yeah,
smaller group, and 6, 7 people would be perfect.
right. Sure.
Yeah, or maybe go over to the manor and see if I can do some classes over there with them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was very fun. My bunny is okay.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, you got to keep talking.
Oh, can you see? Can you see it?
Yeah.
I have a lot of improving to do, but it was a lot of fun.
No, yeah, it looks great.
And
You caught up well. You kept pretty good on timing and everything. It was great.
I learned a lot.
Good. That was the main thing. That's what I like to hear.
Right.
Yeah, any way I can help. And I appreciate, like I said, all your help too.
Yeah.
So I'm one that I like to give back to a little bit. So definitely, if you want to sit in on the next class, that would be wonderful. Spread the joy, and
Okay.
I'll send you a link to my group if you want to post your finished picture on there.
Okay. Once
After,
I finish it, I'm gonna do a
yeah,
few little other things.
yeah, get your little touches added into there, and sign your name on the bottom, and
Oh yeah.
give a
Maybe
little.
I'll kind of hide my name in the grass somewhere.
Yeah, sometimes I make them too big. Like if you're gonna sell them or give them away, you don't want to put your name that big.
Yeah.
But try to do just your initials or something small in the corner.
Yeah.
Some people will just do a small little initial and then they actually sign the back bigger with the date and the name of the project, and then that way
That's a
they
good
can,
idea. Yeah.
yeah, then whoever you give it to can see that your full name, your the date that you did it, and name the guy,
Yeah.
Harry the Bunny or something. Bob the Bunny.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call him.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
Good, good. I'm so glad. So we'll see you then on Facebook and around.
Okay.
And look forward to seeing you again the next class,
Yep.
and
Glad to
seeing
be
your
there.
and seeing yours and Debbie's finished work would be wonderful.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, and have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.